the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
Welcome back to another adventure here on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, Annie, along with my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Good afternoon and happy 4th of July, Curtis. Can you hear us, Curtis? Nope, we have no sound, Curtis. Unfortunately, your headset unplugged again. So check your headset. Anyway, while Curtis tries to get himself back on here, we have a lot to talk about and a lot to do. We got three great guests, Faris and Gerry James. He is running for Florida District 7 Senate seat. Then we have Cathi Chamberlain. She's the author of Rules for Deplorales. We do have a lot to talk about. Joe Biden is at it again. He just can't make some of this stuff up and just gets crazier and crazier. Do we have Curtis back now? You want to say yes or no? No, no sound, Curtis. Check how your headset's plugged in. Folks, this is live. You can't make this stuff up when these things happen. Anyway, yesterday was 4th of July, and for those who don't know, that is the day my mom turned 92, and we threw a party for her. It took me 2 days worth of preparations, but she sat like a queen bee in the living room, her white hair just glowing, along with his eyes twinkling, smiling, laughing, having a great time. And for a woman at the age of 92, she's got more on the balls than our president does. That says a lot about Uncle Joe, who's 11 years younger than my mom. Does it not, Curtis? All right, we're having problems with Curtis now. It looks like his camera froze.
So her birthday's the 4th of July?
Yep, she was born 4th of July, 4th of July, 1932. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So
I got a friend whose birthday was the 4th.
Nope. Well, I started off inviting just a couple of local, close friends and some relatives over to the house, people that live locally. It was going to be about maybe 8 or 9. I think we had over 20, and I still had food left over.
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. We had a glorious celebration. Glorious. But then we saw President Biden get up after with the fireworks and to address the troops. And, of course, he flubs again. I'm no word master, but I do know that, hey, listen, I have a stuttering problem. So I will stutter over words. I suffer from dyslexia. So, yes, I have a little problem sometimes getting my words across. I can't remember certain words at certain times because I get flustered and frustrated. But I don't have the major lapse that we're seeing with our current president. When he starts to meander off with a story about President Trump midway and then stops and changes subject, that's confusing. And when he is asked by was it the governor from Hawaii? I have the story here buried in the group, who happens to be a medical doctor, how he is feeling. And Biden responds, "Oh, it's just my brain." Excuse me? Is that supposed to be a joke? I don't know.
Well, did you hear the comment he made about being the first black female vice president?
That's in the story that I have over here. And I think he was referring to Kamala Harris. He was confused whether or not he was talking about Obama.
He said, I am the first black female vice president who served under the first black president.
Jeez. You just
totally
really can't make some of this stuff up. And, well, whatever's going on with Joe Biden, it is going to affect, it looks like, who Trump chooses as his running mate. a lot of people are pushing for him to get someone much younger and possibly someone of a minority race to counter if Biden does drop out, if they put Kamala Harris in. If Biden were to resign, Kamala Harris would then become the first female president. Now, if you remember correctly, Curtis, when we started first talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris before he was elected, what was my prediction? That before the end of his term, he'd what? He'd resign, making Kamala Harris the first female president. And it looks like that may come to fruition.
But I don't think Jill wants that. I think she loves being in the White House.
Yeah, I think Jill is the power behind the throne.
She is. I mean, she whispers like she's a ventriloquist, and he reacts.
Well, now that we have you fully functional and back again, once again, want to welcome everyone here that is watching us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, and half a dozen other places. And we will be rebroadcasting up on Big Patriot Radio tomorrow. People can find that at bigpatriotradio.com, as well as onto Blog Talk Radio, Buzzsprout, and I don't know, about 20 other different places. And we're still working on getting us back onto our homepage, trying to find someone to help me do that. If anyone knows WordPress, get a hold of me, and maybe we can work something out. But people that watch our show know that we start each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And I chose this because yesterday was July 4th. It was our 248th anniversary of the founding of this nation with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And I put together, I actually uploaded from YouTube 2 videos, one on the U.S. Declaration of Independence and the other on the 56 men that signed it and what happened to them. So today's dedication goes out to these brave men and women. I will also add women, because women did fight alongside men in the Revolutionary War, many of them acting as spies. Many of them have donned the uniform in secret, some of them taking up the arms after their husbands fell in battle, and others just being support on the home front. Yeah, so today's show is dedicated to the men and women that fought for the independence of this nation, that gave us the freedom to speak as we are on this show, and for you also to exercise your constitutional rights. And here is the first of the 2 videos.
By issuing the Declaration of Independence, adopted by the Continental Congress on July 4, 1776, the 13 American colonies severed their political connections to Great Britain. The Declaration summarized the colonists' motivations for seeking independence. By declaring themselves an independent nation, the American colonists were able to confirm an official alliance with the government of France and obtain French assistance in the war against Great Britain. Declaration of Independence. In Congress. July 4, 1776. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new. Government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form, as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown, that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly, for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without, and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice, by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone, for the tenure of their offices, and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices, and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people, and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our constitution, and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. For protecting them, by a mock trial, from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. For depriving us in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. For suspending our own legislatures, and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here, by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity, which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name, and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare, that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain, is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
"56 men signed the Declaration of Independence. 56 men signed a document guaranteeing our right to pursue our happiness." What sort of men were these? 24 were judges and lawyers. 9 were farmers and plantation owners. 11 were merchants. The remaining 12 were doctors, ministers, and politicians. Well-educated men of means, knowing full well that signing such a document would mean certain death if captured.
Fire! Driving low!
These 56 men sacrificed everything to ensure our freedom. 5 were tortured and subsequently died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 9 died fighting the Revolutionary War. Signer and New York delegate Francis Lewis was born in Wales, the only child of a clergyman and orphaned at an early age. His signature proved costly indeed. Francis Lewis saw his home plundered and properties destroyed. The enemy incarcerated his wife, and she died months later. Signer Carter Braxton, born in Virginia, invested much of his wealth as a successful planter and trader into the revolutionary cause. The British destroyed his private fleet as well as a number of his plantations. After selling his home and remaining possessions to pay his debts, Carter Braxton died in rags. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were men of courage. Men such as signer Thomas McKean, born in Pennsylvania in 1734. Continually hounded by enemy pursuers, Thomas was forced to move his family on a constant basis. He served in Congress without pay. His reward? A family kept in hiding, his possessions taken away, a life in abject poverty. Signer John Hart was a highly successful New Jersey farmer. He served as a justice of the peace and a member of the New Jersey Assembly. Later, John Hart became a delegate to the Continental Congress. After being driven from his dying wife's bedside, his 13 children having fled for their lives, John Hart lived in the woods and forest caves for over a year. He returned home only to find his wife dead and his children vanished. Weeks later, John Hart died from exhaustion and a broken spirit. Signers Philip Livingston and Lewis Morris experienced similar fates. And then there's the remarkable story of signer Thomas Nelson Jr. Thomas Nelson Jr. lived his life before the war as a Virginia planter, soldier, and statesman. His home was abruptly taken by British General Cornwallis for use as headquarters during the Battle of Yorktown. Governor Nelson became incensed as American guns would not engage. "Why do you spare my home?" he decried. Their response, "Sir, out of respect for you." Frustrated, Nelson demanded, "Give me the cannon," then proceeded to destroy the palatial residence himself. Yet this was not the end of his heroic sacrifice. Nelson raised $2 million, pledging his own estates to support the revolutionary cause. His property was forfeited when a peacetime Congress refused to honor that debt. Thomas Nelson Jr. died a few years later, bankrupt at age 50. Thomas Nelson Jr. wasn't alone, as soldiers and vandals ransacked and pilfered the homes of signers Clymer, Ellery, Gwinnett, Hall, Hayward, Middleton, Rutledge, and Walton. So let us honor the unparalleled sacrifices of these 56 men and thank them.
Today's show is dedicated to these men, and we dedicate it also to the men and women that serve as first responders, be they law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services. We also dedicate it to all the brave men and women that have served to fight for this nation, from its past, its present, and its future. We dedicate to them this song by Tiffany, Soul of a Nation. May God bless each and every one.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, Father, Mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm when our time has come. We gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace.
Right, we're back here watching Southern Sense and listening to Southern Sense Live with me, your hostess with the least mostest, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, as well as my co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett, who's back in the studio, and he was so hoity-toity, he was deciding to broadcast from his guest cabin.
Yeah, I thought I'd give Caroline the kitchen back, but so, I'm gonna have to get a booster.
Yeah, they're not expensive to do that. Not expensive at all. But welcome back, Curtis. We have ourselves a lot to talk about today as we're waiting for our first set of guests to call in. Did you, by any chance, watch the Biden little whatever the shindig he had at the White House with the fireworks?
Oh yeah.
And what was your impression?
It's like looked like a mummy or something. I mean, he was taking his orders from Jill, who was standing beside him, whispering stuff like I said offline, like a ventriloquist. You see her mouth move, and she leaned kind of towards him, and then he'll react, like lift up Kamala Harris' hands or something like that. But he's been instructed to do that by her.
Wow.
So apparently she's wanting to stay in the White House.
Why doesn't she run?
She would never get elected.
No, I think she's the most hated first lady I have ever seen in my lifetime. I mean, there was a lot with Nancy Reagan. A lot of people didn't like her. I'm trying to think who else that was worse than Nancy Reagan.
Well, President Taft, he never wanted to be president. He wanted to be Supreme Court Justice.
Mm-hmm.
But his wife badgered him until he became president. But once he did one term in office, he actually became Supreme Court Justice, our only president to do that.
Mm.
But his wife was pulling the strings at first. She wanted to be in the White House.
Yep. You know, it's bad with Biden when the New York Times runs an article the day after July 4th, and Biden's verbal stumbles spotlight as he hosts July 4th events. And they write a critical article about Joe Biden. New York Times, the liberal New York Times.
They're just covering their butts. They knew all along.
Yeah, the day after the debate, they were calling for him to step out of the race, to have someone else come in his spot. And you're seeing this in liberal media outlets one after another. They're all starting to abandon ship. And because
they can't cover for him anymore.
No. And what is her name? She's the heir to the Disney fortune. Is it Abigail, her name? Just forgive me. I'm trying to remember what her name is. It's one of the articles I pulled up.
And she's not a Disney, and she's an heir. Right?
She's one of the Disney heirs. And she's already said, I'm not going to donate a single dime to any of the PACs, to any of these other agencies that are supporting Biden in his reelection bid. She goes, not one more dime. And if you have a Disney saying no to a liberal president, that's saying a lot. The Times article actually points out his other missteps. In an interview to the Wisconsin radio station, he said he screwed up during the debate. He said, I had one bad night. He's telling them. I mean, he's admitting in public that he's having problems. In the meeting with the governors, and here it is, it's the governor of Hawaii. I was trying to remember if it was a senator or a governor. Governor Josh Green of Hawaii, who attended virtually to that meeting and is a physician. He asked Biden about his health, and he said, quote, it's just my brain. A remark that some in the room took as a joke, but others found very puzzling, as I do. Gavin Newsom was one of the first ones to state he's got Biden's back. But you think about the way he said it. Meaning if Joe Biden decides to step down, he still has his Joe Biden's back, supporting him in whatever his decision is. But that leaves it wide open for Gavin Newsom now to step in as the key candidate. And think about this. Gavin Newsom was in Michigan hosting an event for Joe Biden. Here's the governor of California stumping around the country in place of Joe Biden. Doesn't that sound more like Gavin Newsom's actually testing the waters to see how receptive people are to him running as president instead of Biden?
Well, actually, some months ago, I said on the show that I think he would be the first person they go to.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama doesn't want it. She's not interested. She don't want the being in spotlight. So this is their Hollywood boy there.
Right.
California.
And I was correct. Her name is Abigail Disney, and she is the heir to the Disney fortune. And she told Biden's campaign and the committees supporting it that, quote, not receive another dime from me until they bite the bullet and replace Biden at the top of the ticket.
Well, there have been others who said the same thing.
Right.
You have to replace them or you're not getting another dollar.
Right, right. Now, we're waiting for your friends to call in. Hopefully they'll be signing in very shortly. If you want to maybe try to text them a message to let them know that we are live, and we can go on with that. We also, looking up here, as you do that, there's another article I pulled up, and this was on Jake Schneider, who's the Rapid Response Director for the Republican National Committee. And he posted this in an email to everyone, pointing out Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline from the public. And they're saying that there's been a massive fraud to willfully hide Joe Biden's decline. And no one has been more central to the cover-up. And he names Kamala Harris, the vice president. And he lists the dates and the statements she made over a number of years, starting in November of 2022, when she said, I have no doubt about the strength of the work that we have done when asking about Joe Biden's mental status. This was followed by February 8th of 2023. And she stated, when asked about Joe Biden again, she says, we have a very bold and vibrant president in Joe Biden. And you think about this, because if Joe Biden does resign from the presidency, Kamala Harris now becomes the president. And the bullseye is going to be on her back for statements just like this, her knowledge about his capabilities. Would that be now an impeachable offense against Kamala Harris to hide from the nation how in ill health the president is and ill-equipped to perform the duties of the presidency? especially in this time. Critical international crises are hitting us. You have Putin looking at a weak president. You got President Xi in China looking at a weak president. You've got North Korea looking at a weak president. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas. And then the withdrawing of aid and necessary military equipment to Israel to defend their nation, the only democracy in the Middle East. The world is seeing our borders wide open with what they're admitting to of 10 million illegals being admitted. That number is somewhere probably closer beyond 20 million, probably closer to 50 million. That's more than the population of the states. I don't mean the entire United States, but you think about the population per state. You think 50 million. That is 10 million. They're saying 10 million, and you're talking maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 million. He follows up with another statement on February 8th of 2023. Said it's about thinking about whether or not we have in our leader, which we do in Joe Biden, someone who is bold. And she continues with statement after statement after statement over the years. With February 17th of 2023, Biden, referring to him, is probably one of the boldest and strongest American presidents we have had. And we knew before he even took office, we saw a cognitive decline in him as he was running for election, and has become worse over the years, especially with the crises we are now facing. It's extremely, extremely noticeable. And it's not just that the debate highlighted it. It's now the debate woke up the nation to the problem. We have a very feeble, sick man as our president who is unable to fulfill his duties of office. He's going to be able to do that 24/7, not take a nap and wake up after the nap and decide whether or not he can do the job. He's going to be able to do the job from day one for 24 hours a day, every day for the entire 4-year term. And we're not seeing this. On March 16th of 2023, she further went on and said, he is an extraordinary leader, and I wish that people could see what I see. No, people are not seeing what you see. People are seeing the truth instead, Kamala Harris. And then on September 7th, asked about him, she replies, Joe Biden's gonna be fine. No, he's not going to be fine. You cannot recover from cognitive degenerative dementia. It's called degenerative because it cannot be recovered from. It will only get worse. September 20th of 2023, she goes on, that referring to him, is in touch with the problems of today and has a vision for what we can do today and in the future. What vision? Have we seen any vision whatsoever? And I'm going to unmute Curtis. Can we unmute Curtis? There we go. Got a smile from him. Come on, there we go. Got you unmuted. But here she is. She's aiding and abetting the cover-up of the condition of the President of the United States and keeping from the Congress and the people the fact that the President has been elected into office who cannot physically or mentally perform the duties of the office, which leaves our nation leaderless.
There should be some kind of mechanism, and it is just the 25th Amendment, but what do you do when you have a spouse that says, no, I don't want my spouse to step down? I mean,
it's not about what the spouse wants. It is not, it's about what the people of the United States want. And we want a strong leader. A leader that's willing to stand up to China, up to Putin, up to the enemies of our world.
But she's pulling the strings, though.
Well, is she? Is she the only one? Or is it a cabal of people that are turning around and saying, well, why don't we try this? Look at what he has appointed to be members of his administration in various roles. You had one that was a transgender, cross-dresser that was stealing people's luggage from airplanes and finally got arrested for that. You have another one, another non-binary who was saying the most horrible things about the American people and then said, oh, it was just youthful indiscretions. He posted them up on social networks. And if you do that as an adult, which he did as an adult, it wasn't youthful indiscretions. He was fully well engaged and an adult. And we're seeing one after another. And Corinne Jean-Pierre, I mean, how does she stand up and face the press with a straight face and say the things she says?
I guess that's her job, the spin room.
When you see Joe Biden speaking and making statements, and you watch Anthony Blinken in the audience listening to Joe Biden and just praying he's not going to say what you fear he's going to say, and then watch him cringe as Joe Biden does say exactly the wrong thing to say, to undo all the work he does.
I've heard this before in the last couple of days, but I think moving forward, we're going to have Congress come up with some kind of cognitive test for any person that holds high office to make sure they can do the job.
No, that leaves Fetterman out. But you know what? He's sounding more like a conservative day by day. So I'm not going to knock him too badly.
But it is a start. You know, it is something that we can use to kind of like get to the bottom of what's true and what's not true about somebody's mental capacity and their ability to hold office.
I mean,
have a cognitive test. Trump said he did it a couple of times and passed with flying colors. Now, why wouldn't Biden do it? Because he knew he wouldn't.
Well, he also offered to take a drug test, and just prior to the debate, and they would not do that either. One thing I pulled this up. I mean, I'm looking for the article now. I have pulled up, like, I can't tell you how many articles just before coming on air. I mean, we're being hit with a flurry of different things that is absolutely amazing. And it had to do with the backdrop at the debate. And what did I do with it now? Oh, please. Oh, here it is. Got it. And this is a guy who sends me a lot of articles. Now, I can't push this up. Oh, I'm sorry. I got his cat that just jumped on me.
Hey, I got a call from our guest, so I'm going to call her back.
Okay, go ahead. While I handle with this, let Curtis go back and do what he's got to do. All right. This was from a friend of mine, and he's telling us to look at the YouTube live video of the debate and look at the backdrop behind Jake Tapper, directly behind him. It would be to his right. And the backdrop has on one panel a red background with white stars. And you think about this, if this is supposed to represent the American flag, the American colors, for those that are watching live on the podcast here, you'll see I have on my background here the American flag at the bottom half of the screen. The American flag are white flags on a blue background. And there's a reason for that, a specific reason for that, as well as the red and white stripes, white for purity, red for the blood that was spilled. So if you want to depict the American flag, then the white stars should be on the blue panels, not the other way around. And as this was being pointed out to me, I'm saying, oh, interesting. Then they point out the buses that the government is using to transport illegal immigrants from the borders to within inside the United States. And on the side of the bus is a red background, and in that red background are yellow stars, not white stars, not a blue background with white stars, but a red background with yellow stars. And then you look at the Chinese Communist flag. And what is that? That is a red background with yellow stars. So the question is, knowing that a lot of our media is being controlled by Chinese influence, knowing that we have a large influx of illegal aliens, which now include Chinese nationals of military age crossing our border illegally, What is the purpose of the symbolism of a red background and stars, be they white or yellow? Is this a signal to the Chinese that, hey, we're welcoming to your communist influence here within the United States? It's very interesting. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I'm just pointing out what someone else has shown me. And if those that are listening have seen something similar, let the show know. Drop us a message. You can also go through the website and send me an email, which is our website is southernsense.net. And hopefully we're going to have, our guests come back in. I'm hitting the wrong things on the computer here. So I just found it very interesting. There's several different articles I also pulled up dealing with China just prior to getting this message. And there was recently an arrest in Italy. And here's that article. In Italy, they seized 6.9 tons of what they call drug precursors, which were being imported into Italy from China. And now these precursors, and let me see where I can find it, is a chemical used in the production of MDMA, which people know as ecstasy or Molly. And these pills were also linked to an apartment owned by a business person in the Netherlands. According to the Dutch statements, they identified the final destination and seized several kilograms of ketamine and marijuana with the arrest of 2 Chinese nationals in the Netherlands. So the destination for the 6.9 tons of drug precursors to make ecstasy and Molly were destined for the Netherlands and possible distribution through the rest of Europe. So what they're doing to our southern border in helping to smuggle in fentanyl and other drugs now that are coming in, not now, but have been coming in and are now increasing. Methamphetamine and others that are now on the rise have control through not only the drug cartels, but with links to communist China. Very interesting how we're finding ways in which to destroy our nation from within, which is what the total point of the Chinese revolution is, to destroy us from within. So I'm looking for some of the other articles I pulled up for today as we're waiting to get out to our guests. Excuse me. And just bear with me, folks, because this is live. All right. So looking at some of the stuff, I'm starting to get my stacks of information mixed up with the other guests. So anyway, these are just some of the things. And if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free, if you're listening on or watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Twitch, you're able to send me a message by clicking on where the video player is, and I will get the message if you want to ask questions or make comments. So in July of this past year, June of this past year, the Justice Department unsealed the first ever charges against Chinese entities and nationals, accusing 4 chemical makers and 8 Chinese nationals of trafficking in precursor chemicals directly into the United States. And since then, dozens of Chinese entities and nations have been blacklisted by the Treasury Department as part of a broader effort to address the opioid crisis. So we took our first steps in June of last year, but it is an ongoing battle because it's not slowing down. So, folks, there's a lot that's going on out here, and we've got to keep our eyes and ears open and listening to what is happening. So hopefully if Curtis can get himself back in here, we can get the show going on. So I apologize as I'm struggling because I was expecting to have 2 great guests with us, and it looks like that may not be happening as we're running down on the clock. One of the things that has been going on lately also is this administration's touting about their economic numbers. And the Epoch Times ran an article today Andrew Moran wrote it. It's called U.S. Economy Adds 208,000 New Jobs. Unemployment rate ticks up to 4.1%. Now, prior to Trump losing to Joe Biden, prior to that election, we were talking about the job numbers and the stats. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I'm recalling job numbers being as low as 3.2%, and unemployment for Black Americans and women dropped to comparable rates to white unemployed males, which normally has the lowest number. And the rates were all coming down to almost equal, in some cases being equal and as on par to white unemployed males. And that was done underneath the Trump administration. And since that time, we had the COVID pandemic where people were forced out of jobs. People started working from home. And people that did go back to work ended up having to work two jobs because of the economic upheaval we had, the cost of products, because if manufacturers are not producing, then the number of goods on the shelves are going to be lower. The cost of those number of goods is going to skyrocket because you've got a lot more people demanding products that are very limited. So it causes inflation. It caused recession. It caused economic upheaval over these last 4 years, or I should say 3.5 years. So they're touting the numbers and creating 208,000 new jobs. But how many of those jobs were actually people returning to work? I asked myself. And then you start to look at the into the woods. Look really deep into this. With this, the average hourly earning decreased. It decreased from 4.1% down to 3.9%. So they're earning less per hour. All right. Now, 1/3 of all those jobs that were created were government jobs. Sure, you're going to fudge the job number market if you are the one hiring the people. So you think about it. 1 out of every 3 jobs created was a government job. That's your taxpayer dollars. How are we going to pay for those jobs? If that's what they're doing, 1 out of every 3 jobs they're creating is a government job. So, of course, the numbers are going to look good. All right. Now, the job losses, most of them were centered in professional and business services of 17,000 negative. Retail, 9,000. Now, think about that. Walgreens has just announced they're going to have a massive closure of their stores. And we see the big boy now is going out of business. Bed Bath & Beyond has already gone under. We're seeing a lot of businesses start to go. Now, here also, full-time positions have declined by 28,000, while the number of people working part-time are 50,000. How many of those were jobs that people said, well, I don't want to pay a full-time worker anymore because I have to pay them more plus give them benefits. But if I have a part-time worker, I can pay them less and not provide those extra benefits like 401ks, healthcare plans, and so forth. Think about that. How many employers will save themselves money and then hire instead part-time workers to do the job of full-time people? All right, now into the number of long-term unemployed, which surged from 166,000 to 1.5 million. The number of people working 2 or more jobs was 8.34 million. Wow. Think about that. 8.34 million of Americans have to work 2 part-time jobs. All right, now, the number from June of 2023 to June of 2024 of jobs for foreign-born workers increased by more than 1.1 million. What they don't say in these numbers of how many of them now are being employed are illegal aliens. Walmart is now hiring illegal aliens because the government gave them the fiat to do that. Think about that. Illegal aliens are having more rights at a job here in the United States than American. That's crazy. That's crazy. And we do have Curtis back.
They said they were in the studio, but they were waiting. The message they got was they're waiting for you to bring them in. I told them I never saw.
No, they did not show up.
But,
I'm hoping we're not going to have the problem.
I think they were in the wrong show.
Oh.
So they said they're going to call in, so I gave them the number to Block Talk Radio to call in.
Block Talk Radio is not. It's not a live broadcast.
What's the number I should have gave them to call in?
There's no number to call in.
Oh, man.
Did you give them the link I sent you on the phone?
Yeah, they had the link.
That's strange.
I think they just went in the wrong episode or whatever.
No. Because each episode, it should have ended in 4PY. That's the one you gave them.
Let's see. How long ago you sent that to me?
I texted it to you when you got knocked off, just a little bit earlier. So take a look at your text message. You should have it with UUE 6VS 4PY. That should be the one that they should be having. So, folks,
I got a cat at my side here. What's this, Cat Day?
Yeah, it's Cat Day. Yes, folks, I do have not just one. I have 6 cats. Oh, my goodness. It was recently up to 7, but one of them passed away, unfortunately. So my husband brought 2 in. My mom brought 1. I had 4. So we're down now, back down to 6.
Can you resend it to me? Because I don't see it.
If you look at the screen below the pictures, you'll see where it says invite. Click on that.
Go to that.
Click on that, and then you can copy it and paste it, send it. Okay.
And that's the one that they had too.
Right. Now, we were talking prior to Curtis joining us back again about these unemployment numbers. Now, we're seeing that unemployment increased for foreign-born workers. And as I mentioned, some of these large companies are being given permission by our government to hire illegal aliens over native-born Americans, over those that come with a legal visa into the United States and a green card, over them, over our veterans, and they're hiring foreign-born workers, illegal aliens. Now, this increased 1.1 million, but employment opportunities for native-born workers, that's you and me, folks, fell nearly 1 million. So almost the same exact number it increased is the same number it decreased for us. So we have foreign-born workers giving priority over native-born workers, with an increase of 1.1 for foreign-born and a decrease for us, native-born Americans, by 1 million. Is this government looking out for our needs? Is this government sensitive to we, the people? I don't think so. I think we have a major problem here, folks. And when we look at the numbers coming out from the government, how they are being fudged and how we're being fooled and hoodwinked. So, waiting again, trying to get our guest on. We're having a little bit of a snafu here. So hopefully we'll have this corrected. And this is something we've discussed on previous episodes, the change to what our federal government, specifically the Health and Human Services Division, in changing Title IX. For those that are unfamiliar with it, Title IX was an act that was established in 1972, specifically to protect women from discrimination in public education. And it dealt with giving a more fair and level playing field into women's sports, something that was very little funded because it was not well funded. We did not have equipment. We're not able to form teams in our public schools. So women were not finding the same opportunity once they graduated and went on to higher level of education for scholarships, dealing with sports, or even to enter into professional sports. There wasn't a lot of professional female sports out there, not like you see today, where women's basketball is getting the same coverage on TV as men's. You have WWF fighting containing both women and men teams, things we didn't have prior to 1972. And it was to help to protect us from discrimination. And instead, when the Health and Human Services decided to change the regulations to gender ideology over medical reality, they then gave the ability to men identifying as female to participate and then thus prevent us from getting those scholarships, those professional athlete opportunities, sponsorships from corporations, things like that. What we fought for us as a biological gender to happen is now being taken away from us by biological individuals who deem themselves to be gender fluid and identify then as a female. And we've seen this with Leah Thomas. The opportunities that are being taken from women, genetically born women, to appease an ideology. And this Mississippi judge, a U.S. District Judge Louis Garola, granted a preliminary injunction and a nationwide stay against Health and Human Services revisions to Title IX, after complaints alleging HHS seeks to replace health regulations with a regime committed to gender ideology over medical reality. And we do have our guest here, Gerry James. Good afternoon, Mr. James, and how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing very well. It's nice to be on with you.
Oh, I'm sorry about the snafus, but today's been one of those days. It's the day after 4th of July.
It's more like the 13th, Friday the 13th.
But
no better, I would say it's established time to get us.
Hey, listen, I've been taken down by communist China a few times. So YouTube has taken me down. Facebook has banned me a few times. So we're in good stead, in very good stead. Now, my current husband happened to have been a really big golf fanatic, so much as to traveling to Augusta and North Carolina to play. And you, in your own mind, no, I shouldn't say that, are a golf legend. And there was a really interesting article written a while back in Golf Week, and I did pull it up. And you have an interesting history where you said you originally came in and you were rather selfish, but you had an epiphany. And I gather that epiphany has now grown into an urge for public service. Tell us about this.
Well, that epiphany started when I started, really surrendering my life to the Lord. And I then started teaching Sunday school in my local church, and then also doing prison ministry in level 7 security, level 8 security prisons, which is even death row. So I served in prison for the last 15 years. And then I really felt God called me into to running for states. And I wasn't sure why, but I'm very aware of why now.
All right. Well, now you're running for Florida District 7 Senate seat. And what are your priorities now going in there as a state senator representing District 7?
Well, my number one priority is election integrity and making sure that we have a free and fair, transparent election with a U.S. citizen verifiable ID. And I would like to, get rid of all the nonsense drop boxes and a lot of this mail-in balloting, other than the military and a doctor's note for some of the elderly that can't make it to vote. I get that. But we have to get control of our election. If we don't, we do not have a constitutional republic as our founders wanted us to have. In fact, we have an out-of-control democracy, which is what you hear all the time. We have a democracy. That's a lie. We're supposed to have a constitutional republic where the people have how our government is run, not the corporations and trial lawyers, which is how our government is run.
Yeah. Oh, your audio is going in and out a little bit. I don't know if it's your internet or what.
I'm not sure. I don't have. I don't know that I have control of that.
Well, now you lost your face.
Okay,
There we go. There we go. Folks, you can't make this up when it's live. You really can't. Now you lost your face. No, Florida has been undergoing under Governor DeSantis a lot of reforms. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking about Title IX and how my generation finally saw it come to fruition and we benefited from it. But now it's being taken away. What have you done in Florida with Title IX?
Well, I haven't done anything yet. I'm not in the legislature yet, but look,
I meant to say that. I apologize.
Yeah. I'm a proponent of equal access to sports, but the fact of the matter is that the left is now trying to insert its will and have women or men compete as women in sports. Men compete as women. And, they're taking away women's sports, and it's an abomination. We all know it. We all know it. And, to be fair, Governor DeSantis has stepped up on that issue and legislated towards, sanity, I would say. And he's legislated towards sanity in a lot of areas. The one big area, though, that I disagree with Governor DeSantis is insurance reform. And, the person that was the head of the spear in insurance reform is my opponent, Tom Leak. He's been in office for 8 years, and he spearheaded this tort reform, or so-called tort reform, which in fact all it is a laying of the burden from the insurance company where it should be back to the consumer. So there's no tort reform at all. It's just transferring the liability from the insurance company where it should be, because you're paying them to take that liability risk. But no, they transferred it back to the consumer, which is an abomination. And people just don't realize it. They don't realize it until they make a claim. And when they make a claim, their claims are now almost automatically denied. And if you take them to court and they prevail in court, you're still on the hook for your own legal fees, which is absolutely insane. We have to repeal that law, and I will as soon as I get up there. I will make a bill to repeal it and get some sanity back into our insurance regulation. There's a lot of steps that we can take to put sanity into our insurance. But in my opinion, this is a made-up crisis. It's a complete made-up crisis for the Republicans to run on, because this is what establishment Republicans do, like my opponent Tom Lee. They make up things to run on. They present this huge problem where everybody's paying for it. They take massive insurance kickback or donations into their campaigns, and then they legislate for those insurance companies, and they act like they're going to help you, which in fact they're turning right around and stabbing you in the back, and they're not helping you at all. They're legislating actually against you, and it sounds nefarious, and it really is.
Well, it's funny because my mom lived in a hurricane zone down in the Virgin Islands. She's now living here with me. I'm in the hurricane zone like you are, and we're seeing one heading possibly towards Houston, Texas, coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. And we purchase insurance for exactly this type of a situation.
Right.
And instead, they're telling us, well, you're going to be better off if you self-insure. How many people can actually afford to self-insure?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very few. You'd have to own your own home outright to self-insure. And then you're completely taking the risk of, this is the point. And really, we are in a crisis in this state right now. They formed a government insurance agency several years ago called Citizens Insurance. It's insolvent right now. It's been mismanaged. the people that were managing it made millions of dollars to manage it. But like anything else, when you let the government do it, it's always mismanaged, it's always misrun, and it usually always ends up in catastrophe. You know, the thing is that as a conservative, what I battle against the most is what is called fascism, and that's where you meld government and business together, and you let the business do the government's dirty work, and that's fascism. And really, that's what's happening in our insurance industry right now. It's really nothing more than that. And really, that's what's happening.
In all fairness, I got to say, there is a family members to the family I just married into that work with insurance, and actually they're gearing up for the hurricane season and taking on claims. So I hope that you do prevail, because they are working hard to help protect the people. The company they work for is a very good one. It's one of the few I can honestly say is a good one. You were talking about election integrity, and I know here in South Carolina, we did a major revamp of our elections. And believe it or not, we have assaults already reversing the good work that we're doing, because in Wisconsin, their Supreme Court has now allowed the drop boxes back in play, the unmanned drop boxes. And is there any additional election reform beyond what has already been done that you would like to see in the state of Florida?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the state of Florida is wide open for fraud right now. Most people don't realize it. We don't have a government-issued verifiable U.S. citizen ID required to be able to vote. Most people think that we do. We don't. It's just a driver's license that, frankly, illegal aliens can get. And unless we straighten out our vote and make sure that only U.S. citizens are voting, clean up the voter rolls, make sure that there is no more drop boxes. You know, the last election, I ran in 22 against the incumbent. Now it's an open seat for the same Senate seat. Well, it happens that I won on election day in certain counties. So on Tuesday, election day, I actually won the most votes. But I was outvoted 4-1 in certain counties in mail-in balloting. Well, we asked to see those mail-in ballots. We asked to see, and we wanted to compare signatures. The supervisor of election would not show us, by law, those signature verifications. Now, I find that very odd in itself. You know, I want full transparency on our vote. We don't have that. We don't have a free, fair election on our vote.
All right. Well, Gerry, we are being joined by Cathi Chamberlain, who she's been on the show once before, and I had to pull up my notes to remind myself, with the marvelous book, Rules for Deplorables.
Yeah.
And she also has her own podcast. Welcome aboard, Cathi. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Ann CS. Great to see you. And Gerry James, it's great to finally meet you.
Thank you, Cathi. I've heard a lot about you.
Same here.
Two great people. Gerry, people can find about your campaign by going to your website, which is Gerry4Senate.com, correct?
Yeah, and it's Gerry with a G. Most people spell it with a J, but it's Gerry with a G, the number 4, Senate.com. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have that on the show description. So when people listen to it in the archives, they can also see it and click onto your website. Cathi, you don't have to mute yourself.
Okay. was worried some feedback was getting through there, but okay. Thanks.
No, I have no feedback whatsoever at all. Since the two of you have finally met, Cathi, do you have any questions to ask for this Senate candidate? Because you are also out of the great state of Florida.
Yes, I sure am. And I do know that I believe Deb Faris is helping you over there on the East Coast, right, Gerry?
She is, and she's a great U.S. citizen and, with a fantastic story of her own. And it was kind of just a godly intervention that we met. And I knew shortly after I met her that she was going to be the one to help me, because she was intimately involved with election fraud coming from Venezuela and knew the issues that I'm running against. So it was a breath of fresh air. We are like-minded in so many areas, and so it was a breath of fresh air. Extreme amount of help and the grassroots campaign to have her on board.
Yeah, I've worked with her for a couple of years with Defend Florida, of course, and she has been on my podcast as well, related to her Venezuela story. So she's an amazing lady. Glad she's helping you.
Well, she was here before, and she decided to drop out, and wish she hadn't, because I wanted to ask her a bunch of questions too. But we're going to save that for a later date. CS, you can bring her back on solo, and we can have her talk about that. In Florida, matter of fact, my sister is now moving to Florida within the next month or so. What area does District 7 cover?
It's St. Johns County, Flagler County, the northern end of Volusia County, and all of Putnam County. So that's the district. It's quite expansive. So from my doorstep to the southern end of my county, it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes drive. And then to the west, it's about the same. So there's a lot of square miles there that I have to cover, and I have been for the most part. But unlike the establishment, I don't have millions and millions and millions of dollars that I have basically gotten from the corporations that I can use to cover the radio stations and the TV stations and hire people to work for me. I'm pretty much doing it all myself.
Wow. Now, on your website, you talk about a two-tier legal system. And for those who don't know, that I'm retired law enforcement, and we used to call it revolving door justice. No sooner did you make the arrest than the guy's back out on the street before you have your uniform off, or you even hit your car to head home. But we're seeing it taken to an extreme. And I think the Trump trials have just brought it to the public more than people want to admit to. We see on one hand the revolving door justice with an illegal alien that goes out and commits rape and murder later on, repeatedly, compared to an American citizen, the January 6th prisoners. It's a two-tier justice system. How would you seek to amend that, Gerry, when you become elected?
Well, the first thing that I would do is write a bill to disallow the Capitol Police in the state of Florida. The Capitol Police have no business in this state whatsoever. We're a sovereign state, and we're supposed to have a sovereign sheriff that protects our counties. Each county has a sheriff. It's an abomination for the Capitol Police to be here, and they are here. And we have to boot them the heck out of here. The whole system of justice is turned on its head. We all see this through the Trump trials and the January 6th trial. We have people up in the gulags that have never been given correct due process. And quite frankly, my opponent also voted for red flag laws against our Second Amendment, which, you don't need due process to go in and take somebody's gun now. You can just, if you have a neighbor that's disgruntled with you, they can say that you threatened them, and the sheriff can go in and aid with their weapon, according to these red flag laws, which is an abomination in itself. So we need to get a hold of our laws. We need to get back to our Constitution. And we need to get back to, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and cut the size and scope of this government at all costs. And the state government, the behemoth too. So I would try to do that as much as possible.
If I can add something there, Ann,
sure.
Regarding the Capitol Police, I totally agree with Gerry. As a matter of fact, I've led several protests over there in Tampa on Falkenberg Road, where they've set up shop right there in the sheriff's office. And it's infuriating because I did a deep dive research on the Capitol Police, and I was shocked to find out that they don't even have to to answer FOIA requests. So they have a totally different set of rules that a lot of citizens are not aware of. But Gerry, I'm really curious because I've been trying to get an answer to this for a while. I've heard the governor can't do anything about it. Then I've heard he can. Then I've heard, I don't know how to get rid of them. The governor can't do anything about it. Then I've heard he can. Then I've heard.
That's a good question, Gerry. How does the government have power?
Look, we have a state constitution.
That's a good question, Gerry.
And the federal government is not supposed to, according to our constitution, be over the state government. We have states' rights. And if the governor doesn't have the will to boot the Capitol Police out, there is the only reason that I could think of would be because the federal government is threatening to hold funds of some. It always comes down to money. Okay, and at this point, we have to take a hard look at that and ask ourselves: is it worth money to give up our freedom and our sovereignty? And I don't think it is. I would never vote for that. And here's the other thing: people don't realize we've had 500,000 illegal aliens drop in this state in the last 6 months. That's verified. Okay, they're coming in at the dark of night. They're flying in. They're unloading from these planes. They're coming in and they're boarding buses. And upon boarding these buses, they're given $5,000 to $7,000 in cash money because they don't know how to spend credit cards or use debit cards, and a cell phone. And then they're shipped into the interior of our state and sometimes into the cities. 330,000 in Miami alone. So my question is this: where is the Republican Party? Why isn't the Republican Party saying, okay, we cannot prevent you from landing in this state, but we should be able to prevent you from unboarding off those planes because we have no idea who's coming off those planes, whether they're terrorists or not. The government's main job is to protect the people and to provide safety of these people. And if the governor says, well, I can't do anything or whatever, there's a problem there. Okay, we have to figure out what that problem is and address it.
Well, one of the things we mentioned earlier, and Cathi, I know you're involved with this, the January 6ers. Now, you had been working with someone trying to help him on his appeal. He's currently still in jail, sentenced to 7 years. I previously had on Jake Lang, and it's something that I fail to understand. We have catch and release with illegal aliens here, and yet American citizens are still sitting behind bars. Many of them have yet to see a courtroom, much less have a permission to see their attorneys or family. And they're being treated worse than prisoners at Gitmo.
Yes, there's no question. Nobody's paying attention to them. It's like a hot potato, they're radioactive. People believe that their political careers are going to be attacked, I think, if they get involved. Because it was very, very difficult for me to bring attention to Jeremy Brown, is the one you're referring to. And so I finally challenged him while he was sitting in jail. Hey, you're not getting any attention. How about this? How about if if you run for office from inside jail, maybe that'll get some people waking up, and it did for sure, but not nearly enough. And we could never get any representatives in Florida to visit him or to come to his defense or to even look at his case. Even Ashley Moody. Okay, our Attorney General. There was a phone call that Jeremy was on with the FBI, and he actually reached out to Ashley Moody for help. And the very next day, he found out later in his discovery papers, Ashley Moody turned over his request to the FBI. Later in his discovery papers,
right? Yeah, that's the cowardice of our Republican Party and backstabbing cowardice. Right. Yeah, that's the cowardice. Unless we get courageous representatives and patriots there that are willing to fight. We don't have a sovereign state. Anthony Sabatini has represented a few of the January 6th prisoners in this gulag. He's went up there and fought for them. He's one of my endorsers. He knows that I'll stand beside them. Fred, the whistleblower, is another one of my endorsers. He's an FBI whistleblower. And, you know, we don't need any more politicians. We need fighters now. Okay, we're beyond the politically correct politicians running for office. We need to get fighters in office that are willing to stand and not bend. We don't need any more cowards.
No, we don't. Well, I wish we didn't have the technical difficulties we had today with getting everyone on. I apologize for that. It was beyond our control. But Gerry, people can find you with the letter G, Gerry, the number 4, Senate, Gerry4Senate.com. And Cathi, they can find you for rulesfordeplorables.com, or you can have a link to your webcast. You have a new name for it. It was Warn 2024, correct?
And that's on Rumble, but my actual website is rulesfordeplorablesbook.com. Don't forget the book. Rules for Deplorables was taken when I tried to get the URL. So as you can imagine, I was a little too late for that. But so you got to get that rulesfordeplorablesbook.com.
Well, I'll update my description so people go directly to you. Even though you wrote the book a couple of years ago, it is still valid and important today. Yes. And I'm proud to be a deplorable.
Me too.
Because I still run a tea party 15 years running now. Yes. Well, good luck, Gerry, and we welcome you back anytime. And Cathi, I'm sorry we didn't have more time for you, darling.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's do it again. And I want to get CS on my show as well. Warn 2024. Thank you very much, you guys.
Yeah, CS unmutes himself. Take care. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, guys. Right. I'll see you Tuesday, CS.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, and God bless.
Bye-bye.
Oh, here we go. There we go. There we go. All right, Curtis, that's all we got for today. We're down to our last, not even 1 minute, just about 1 minute left to go on the show. But we do have a guest lined up for next week. Let me just open up my phone to pull up the calendar. Just bear with me while I do that. Calendar, here we go. Come on, hit open up. And next week is the 12th. And we have Mark Tapscott and attorney John O'Connor. We've had John on several times before, and it'll be really great to talk to him. He was one of the ones that wrote an opening, groundbreaking book about Watergate and how some of that stuff behind the scenes of the scandal that people were not aware of, that he brought forward, dealing with Deep Throat. So, yeah, we've got ourselves a blockbuster show set up for next week and look forward to it. And we had a lot of people sending in prayers and comments dealing with your sister's health. I hope is she at home now?
She is home and recuperating, and she should be back to normal in about another week.
Good. Well, everyone sent out a lot of prayers, especially some of our guests made a deliberate call out prayer to her.
Appreciate that.
So she let her know that she's in her heart, and I hope everything works out. And I wish everyone have a very safe weekend this 4th of July and enjoy yourself. And remember what it stands for, the Declaration of our Independence that set the foundation for our Constitution. And we need to continue to fight. Know your Constitution. And I would say for that, that's all we got. I would say good night and God bless.
Take care.
And I would say for that, that's all we got.